You're listening to episode 24 of Liz's Healthy Table.
Looking for a healthy new way to feed your family without the hassle and hype? Welcome to Liz's Healthy Table, where your host, registered dietitian nutritionist Liz Weiss, serves up fresh and flavorful recipes with a tasty side of science, good nutrition, and fun. Are you and your family ready for some wholesome food that tastes great too? Don't change that dial. Your food adventure starts here.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Today, my guest is Holley Grainger. Holley is a mom, a dietitian. She is a lunchbox guru. She's also a lifestyle expert, and her blog is called Cleverful Living, which is kind of clever, and it's filled with all sorts of recipes, really designed to keep her family, and especially her two daughters, Ellie and Frances, keep them well fed, keep them happy all day, and not just at lunchtime. So be sure to check out Holley's website. I'll give you all the links in the podcast notes. So Holley's going to be here today to share some of her girls' favorite Bento Box lunches. She's going to offer some insight into taming the lunchbox beast. And by that, I mean, how do you get more organized when it comes to packing lunches? And then she's got some really smart ideas for building a better sandwich. Now, I was just doing a little bit of math, speaking of school and lunches. I wanted to calculate how many years I spent packing lunches for Josh and Simon, and it comes to 16. Yeah, 16 years of packing lunches. It's a long time. And, I haven't really completely retired because Simon sort of is still in and out of our lives. He's doing this gap year, and when he's around, I pack him a lunch when he's heading off to work, but more or less I've hung up my hat. But I am sure that, plenty of you out there are still in the trenches. So I think you're really going to enjoy the show today. But before we break out our bentos, I do have a few friendly reminders. If you like the show, you can subscribe to it on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really like it, feel free to post a review. And if you just want to check out all of my past podcast episodes, this is episode 24, so lots of other shows to listen to, then visit my website, lizshealthytable.com/podcast. Liz's Healthy Table is brought to you by the Parents on Demand Network, which is an app which is filled with parenting shows, parenting podcasts, including a show that I just discovered called The Empowered Mama. And the host of The Empowered Mama is Lisa Druxman. It's a really great show. It's a weekly podcast, and it's really aimed at moms to empower you, to empower all of us moms listening to reclaim your time, claim your health, claim yourself. It's really the goal of the show is to help you live your best life as a mom. So I encourage you to check out that show, The Empowered Mama, but it's on the app Parents on Demand. And you can learn more at parentsondemand.com. And finally, today's show is sponsored by Super Healthy Kids, your one-stop shop for recipes, meal plans, cooking videos, and of course, lunchbox recipes. You can visit them at superhealthykids.com. All right, speaking of lunchboxes, I am ready to dig in with my guest, Holley Grainger. Holley Grainger, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here to chat with one of my favorite topics, which is, of course, lunchboxes. They never go away.
They never go away. But, breakfast never goes away and dinner never goes away. And I feel like we talk about breakfast all the time, right? The most important meal of the day. And then dinner, there's so many good recipes out there. I feel like lunch is the Rodney Dangerfield of the day. What do you think about lunch? Does it get the respect and the love it deserves?
No, not at all. And I completely agree. And I'm probably, just as bad of an offender as the next person, because it's like, we think I wake up, I'm hungry, I want to eat something. And then, I work from home. And so a lot of times I just kind of cruise through lunch, grab something, eat something mindlessly. And then before I know it, it's 3:00 and I'm starving. So I pay a lot of attention to what I'm sending my children and what they're going to have. And if I'm packing a lunch, or maybe it's Friday pizza day and it's hot lunch. So we always know what's going on in the lunch world for them. But I think parents especially let it go, and it really needs more attention, because, when I do lunch, and especially if I'm eating out with friends or something, it's like the best time that I might be eating a salad or something like that. So it's a great way to pack in a lot of those vegetables and things I might not be getting otherwise. But no, I think people, especially adults, sometimes let lunch just kind of slide on by, but it's a great time and good opportunity to really fuel you, so you're not starving and overeat by the time you get to dinner.
Right. And, I'm thinking of today, I had a salad for lunch. I had a leftover salad in the fridge, and then I sort of added some things to it. But I do think, you're right. We give our kids the attention. We forget about ourselves. So I want to talk a little bit about packing kids' lunches, but also how we can think about their lunches as an extension of our lunches. In other words, we can use some of those ingredients to make a lunch for ourselves. But let's just back up and talk a little bit about kids' lunches. Now, obviously, it depends on the ages of kids, but as a dietitian and a lunch guru, can you kind of give us the key components to what makes up a healthy school lunch or a kid's lunchbox?
Yes, certainly. Well, my girls, they're 6.5 and 4. And so certainly as they've gotten older, because I've been packing lunchboxes since Ellie was, eating anything solid. And of course, it changes a little bit. It adapts with their flavor of the day. I deal with 2 selective eaters. And so I really think lunchboxes are a great opportunity to be able to introduce and reintroduce because it's all about the exposure, right? So it's a great time to be able to share that. But I also don't want to be that mom and that, they're like, oh, my mom packed this again for me, that they just dread. And it's not something fun or yummy. And so I really kind of go with an 80-20 rule. That takes guilt off of me to be able to, do the best I can. But you know what? We didn't have any veggies today, so that's okay. We're going to make up for it as a snack. But certainly just as a general guideline or an outline for parents that I think about, I sort of have my mental checklist is what I call it when I'm packing a lunchbox. And it really is sort of the steps of what I'm going through. I use a bento style lunchbox. With me makes it almost more of like a no-brainer that I can look at the little compartments and think vegetable, protein source, whole grain source, fruit. So for example, those are really things that I strive for. I usually start by thinking about what's my protein or what's my main entree. I know that there's other parents that start and lead with the vegetables. So kind of depends on what your style is. For me, I'm normally thinking, what's sort of the main thing that's going to give them a lot of that energy to get them through the day. And that's the protein source. So whether that is something as simple as taking, low sodium sliced deli turkey and rolling it up and, maybe putting cheese in the middle and making a little pinwheel, cutting them and making them into pinwheels. It's something easy as that. It might be leftover chicken fingers that I made the night before for dinner. So I really start with the protein. We do a lot of eggs, like hard-boiled eggs. That was in Ellie's lunch today. And then I also will sometimes double up, protein, dairy. Both of the girls get milk at school. So I do know that they're getting their dairy that way, but they love yogurt, cheese, cottage cheese in their lunchbox. So I pay attention to that. And sometimes that's what my protein is. So having just a small background knowledge of what are the different nutrients in food really helps. Then I think about a fruit, I think about a vegetable. And for me, a lot of times, because I struggle with vegetables with the girls, I often include some type of a dip. So we went through a long ranch dressing phase for my oldest Ellie, where she would eat bell peppers and carrots and cucumbers with ranch dressing if I included it. No ranch dressing in the box or the lunchbox, the vegetables came home uneaten. So to me, something like ranch dressing or hummus or guacamole, hummus and guacamole certainly have a lot more nutrition. Something like ranch, maybe not so much, but again, all about that 80-20. So I call that my vehicle food. So if she can have something that may not be the best thing for her, then I'm perfectly fine with it because it means she's eating something else. And then I try, especially since the girls are little, to include some type of a little happy, maybe that's a chocolate coin, maybe it's a note, maybe it's a sticker. Some days it's nothing. I mix it up, but when I can put a little something fun in the lunchbox, I try to do that as well.
Good guidelines. And by the way, Holley, in Boston, you know what we say instead of vehicle? We call it a ca. Pack the cat. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So that's my cat.
Adopt that.
Yeah. Ranch dressing is your cat.
Yeah.
So you've got this well-balanced lunch that you're building for your girls, and you use these bento style lunchboxes. Now, I have 2 boys. They're out of school now, but as they got older, they wouldn't even tolerate anything other than a brown paper bag because it's just not cool, right? So tell us a little bit about these bento style lunches and how that kind of nestles everything in there. But let's be realistic. Not every kid's going to want it. And can you do the brown bag? How do you do that safely? I mean, I know I would put a little ice pack in there. It is what it is, right? I mean, you gotta go with the flow a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, they are little, and that's probably a question I get asked the most is, people will see the lunch boxes that I use and they'll say, that's not enough for my child. And it's like, it's deceptively larger than it looks in the pictures because I do use my bento boxes when every once in a while I like to play nice wife and I'll make his lunch, and I will use those for him. And sometimes he rolls his eyes when I give him a hot pink lunchbox and, I try to put it into some type of insulated bag and he's like, just put it in a Publix bag or a Target bag, some type of grocery sack. And I was like, all right. But yeah, no, I think you got to go with what they'll use. And if it's a brown bag, it's a brown bag. I mean, for me, since I am packing almost every day, again, like I said, it kind of makes it a little bit more mindless where, baggies, you have to think, okay, this goes in here. And it does make a little bit more waste from the standpoint of you're throwing away plastic bags, you're throwing away paper bags. So I use the Planet box. That's a stainless steel box. We have Bento boxes. Those are more of a harder BPA plastic type of box, but those seal shut. And so, food can't move from one little compartment to the other. So I do like that style. But yeah, and I think if you're doing the brown bag, really just kind of remembering food safety. So if you have a brown bag, but you're wanting to put something in there that stays hot, maybe you put a thermos in that brown bag, or you freeze the yogurt tubes if they'll eat a yogurt tube, or a juice box or the water bottle, whatever that is, just to keep the food cold. Because you definitely don't want to be sending something that if it needs to stay refrigerated and they don't eat lunch until 1:00 and you packed it that morning at 6:30, it's going to come up to room temperature, and you have to kind of keep some of those things in mind. But yeah, I would say, again, back to some of my other tips that I know we'll talk about, but involving your children. And if they only want a brown bag and baggies or whatever that is, and that works for them, then say, okay, great, come help me pack it. And we'll do it together and figure out a way to make it work. Because it's all about that compromise.
And what was that lunchbox? It's BPA free, right? And
yes.
What was it called? It was a type of bento?
It's called a Bent Go.
Bent Go.
B-E-T-G-O.
Okay.
And then they have some glass ones now that are larger. And so I'll use that one a lot of times. Like if I know I'm going to be on the go and am able to bring my lunch, I'll put salads in that one. It's a little bit heavier. I certainly wouldn't send a glass style lunchbox. It's thick glass, but still I wouldn't send that with a 6-year-old. But they do make more adult friendly options. Same with Planet Box. They have some that are a little bit more adult friendly. And I think I'm seeing the evolution and revolution of that as well, where bento style boxes are moving into, larger portions and larger sizes so that they are friendly for adults, really also just, because of the economical, sustainable side of it as well.
Right, right. So on your website, holleygrainger.com, you have a really great resource for families, and that is a handout with 125 lunchbox ideas for the bento box. So tell us about that resource.
Yes, and actually it's 125, but we give you 25 extra. So it's 30 weeks of healthy lunchboxes, and these are all lunchbox combinations that I have made and sent to school for my children. So I think the thing that can be really difficult for parents is we're always looking for ways to do the same thing, but differently. So where I'm okay, sending the same thing multiple days in a row, and I'll have parents tell me, my child only eats peanut butter and jelly every single day. I do think using lunch as a time to really help children push beyond some of the picky eating that a lot of parents deal with, and finding some ways to introduce new foods. It's a great opportunity. And so this is a collection, and it's very simple to read. It gives you an opportunity to rate the combination, to make some notes, and I have it divided into categories. So anything that has something as chicken as a main dish. There's how many do I have? I'm sitting here looking at it. There's 25 different ideas where chicken is the main dish. So it might be grilled chicken, brown rice, half and half Greek vanilla yogurt with plain yogurt, apple slices, and some white chocolate chips. Or it might be something as simple as chicken and cheese skewers with watermelon and mini muffins and unsweetened applesauce and a note from mommy. So it gives you that combination so that you're thinking about, here's my kind of entree or protein source, here's maybe my dairy, here are my vegetables, here is a fruit, and then maybe here's the little happy or whatever that might be, a dip. So it's lots of different combinations of foods.
So what would you do then to make everybody's life easier? I know when I was packing lunches for my boys, I am such not the organized person. My listeners know I'm like fly by the seat of my pants. I just decide in the day what I'm doing. So I would make the lunches in the morning. Doing it at night, I know, is much more clever, but what's kind of your strategy to get stuff done ahead so the morning is not so crazy, but also to include your girls to have them help you out? How do you manage? How do you juggle?
What I like to do, especially on nights where, we're either not running to the ballpark or we just got in from the ballpark and we're just throwing together whatever we can because it's late and need to, take a bath and go to bed. Since all the food is already out, the kitchen's a mess. After dinner, that's when I will often try to pull the lunchboxes out, bring the girls in the kitchen because they're right there and engaged with food already, and bringing, their plates up and saying, okay, what can we put in the lunchbox? What was left over from dinner that you want to go in the lunchbox? Let's go ahead and pack our snacks and think about it ahead of time. Doing that makes life so much easier the next morning. But it does take a little bit of extra planning and just a little bit of extra preparation.
But you're saying you already have this captive audience because you've got the girls in the kitchen. They bring their plates up to the sink and now, boom, it's a mess anyway. Let's just do a little prep for tomorrow.
Absolutely. Because if I've sliced apples or strawberries or, we have cantaloupe or melon balls or whatever that is, and then we'll eat them all at dinner, food waste drives me crazy. And if it's not something that they've, completely made disgusting. And of course they are still little. So we try to help, they'll play with your food too much. But as you know, sometimes it's just curiosity about certain ingredients that it's like, they're just checking it out, maybe not sure about eating it yet. But if it is salvageable, to take those melon balls that maybe they didn't eat or the strawberry, or whatever it is, and packing it in the lunchbox, then it's there the next day. And if it's something that they just completely didn't like and refused to eat, I'm not going to be like, you have to eat it tomorrow as well. I'm not going to do that. But just, again, a lot of times with children, it's just the reintroduction and continued exposure of different ingredients. So I'm okay with that. Or maybe I just looked at a way of serving it differently. Maybe, tonight's rotisserie chicken that we topped on a salad is tomorrow's chicken that gets, tossed into something else or is just served by itself with some barbecue sauce or ketchup or whatever that is. So I will sometimes try to rethink how it served to them, but not all the time. A lot of times I just keep it simple and here it is.
Right, right. When my boys were getting older, they started to get really hungry. And so I would find myself packing not one, but two sandwiches for them.
Right.
And, that kind of held them over. And then the veggies and the fruit and all that good stuff on the side. But let's talk a little bit about building a better sandwich, because I feel like sometimes parents and kids, of course, get bored with the same old turkey sandwich on whole wheat bread. So let's talk a little bit about other types of bread. And then, whether you're using a bulky roll or a pita bread or whatever it might be, what are some of the components of building that better sandwich in terms of the type of bread and then what goes inside?
Certainly. Well, we really vary it up with the type of bread that we're using. So, anytime I can get a hearty whole grain or whole wheat bread, I love using that. But then there are also times when we use white bread or Hawaiian rolls, and I'm perfectly fine with that as well, because it might mean that if they don't love the bread, they're not always going to eat the sandwich. If they like the bread, then I might often see that, hey, they're going to work in some other vegetables or things like that that might be a component of the sandwich. So we really vary it up. I certainly don't always have a preference, but I do like to offer variety. So even if that's something like a tortilla or a waffle, crackers. You can kind of get comfortable with, or have a little bit of fun with what that bread looks like. And certainly, white bread is still used and is enriched. And so they're still getting B vitamins and other nutrients from that enriched style bread. So if I can work in a whole wheat or a whole grain, so they're getting some of those options, maybe a little bit of fiber, that's a nice option to be able to use as well. What did you like to pack? Did your boys have a preference?
Yeah, I mean, definitely they always liked anything like, turkey and cheese was always a given. But on that sandwich, whether it's a pita or I started kind of gravitating into these bulky rolls because it was just more substantial, more calories for them. But then I would add things like romaine lettuce. And if I washed the lettuce leaf, which I would always wash the lettuce, I dried it really well because we know anything wet is going to make the bread soggy. And then sometimes I would do like a really thinly sliced tomato, but that would go smack in the middle of everything. So it wasn't touching the bread. And then I would use, for different spreads, I might use hummus. I might, light mayonnaise would be popular. They loved bacon. I would sometimes do just like a nitrate-free, all-natural bacon. Maybe 2 slices, but, really crispy, pat it dry of all that, and, any extra fat. So I felt like that little bit of bacon sometimes really brought that sandwich to the next level. They would love that. Roll-ups, any kind of wrap with, like you were talking about, leftover chicken from the night before, some romaine lettuce, little Caesar dressing, cucumber chopped up, shredded carrots. So yeah, any way to get the veggies in to that sandwich always would make me feel better. And I know they liked it.
Right. Because
that's, to me, the goal. Like the veggies is the area where most kids and probably most adults kind of fall short. And when the other thing too, I used to, beyond sandwiches, I used to do a lot with pasta salad. So they would, I would try to do like a whole wheat pasta or one of the blend pastas. And then a thermos, filled with anything hot was always a big hit with them as well.
I like using cucumbers a lot inside of a sandwich just for that crunch and some type of a crispy lettuce that offers a bit more nutrition than, say, some of the others that may not have as much of the color that we're looking for when it comes to lettuce to get those nutrients. And then they really one likes deli turkey and one likes deli ham. And so I'll choose, a nitrite-free or some type of a low sodium turkey or ham for them a lot of times, and sort of layer that on. And just like you said, the hummus spread is always nice to just be able to work in a little bit more of that plant nutrition. So they are getting a little bit of plant protein and a little bit of fiber when they're able to eat the sandwich as well.
How would you turn your child's lunch into lunch for you or your husband? So how would you take sort of those basic ingredients, and it sounds like you're sort of deconstructing, and do like a really cool salad, maybe in a mason jar, or a really cool pasta salad? How can you kind of have it both ways?
Oh, well, see, and that's what I think with just a tiny bit of planning, you really can make that work. So something, let's say you decide to do for yourself, mason jar salads are a great one that works really well for this. But let's say you do a mason jar Greek salad. I have a recipe for that on my website. Or maybe it's something like a mason jar chef salad. If you have all those ingredients out already for your child, and maybe in their bento box, let's say it's a chef salad, you have some egg in one of the compartments, you have some crispy bacon in another compartment, you have maybe some of the little sweet grape tomatoes that kids like. Maybe they're not chopped up, maybe they're whole, so they can pick them up and dip them into some ranch dressing that might be in a different compartment. And you just take all those components and you put them in the different compartments for your children. Then as a parent, then you can assemble that mason jar salad ahead of time. So you put the wet ingredients on the bottom, some of the heavier ingredients as you start building that up, and then top off the mason jar with all of your lettuce. So then, of course, when you dump it out, or if you just eat it in there and you can stir it up with your fork, I'm doing it like you could see me, you're stirring it with your fork. But when you seal the mason jar, it makes it airtight. And so mason jar salads are really nice that you can make these a couple days ahead and be able to have them fresh and crispy like it was when you put in there. So that's a really nice make ahead option for parents to grab and be able to take to the office or take wherever they might be going, or just even eat at home, and then just take those same different components and put it into their child's lunchbox.
Yeah, and you're saying also to put the dressing on the bottom because that way everything above it stays nice and crispy versus getting soggy.
Yes.
What about things like chickpeas or beans? I know we were big into like the whole bean chili when the guys were younger, and then I would have that for dinner and then into the thermos it would go the next day. But do your girls like chickpeas? Do they like beans?
They do. They do. And they go back and forth. Like I like roasting chickpeas, so they really like crunchy roasted chickpeas as a snack. That's a great snack for me as well. I feel like I'm always munching on those. It's a really good way to get some plant protein, but they will munch on those. I haven't had as much luck with the girls with just beans on their own in a lunchbox, but if it's worked into something like a chili, I mean, they can majorly eat some chili. And I mean, our chili, we do kidney beans and black beans and chickpeas and white. I mean, it's like a 7-bean chili that also has some ground beef and things like that. So they'll eat that for lunch. They'll eat it for dinner. And so again, with just using leftovers, a lot of times when you just think about it, when you're meal prepping, that's, make a big pot of chili or whatever that might be, a bean soup or even a bean salad. We love things like beans with cucumbers and tomatoes all chopped up with some fresh herbs and just a light type of vinaigrette, just a, light colored dressing, some, I don't know, something like an Italian dressing or a champagne vinaigrette or whatnot. And the girls do like that. They'll pick around certain types of beans that they like or certain colors. Like I said, we're still in the finicky stages with some things, but that's really fun to be able to plan and put into a lunchbox for an adult the next day or to plan as part of a meal. So, and it's something that you can eat at night and then something, I love snacking on that as well. So something like a simple bean salad is a yummy snack for me, whether I eat it on its own as a snack or turn it into a quasi dip and eat a few tortilla chips to go along with it. But it definitely is something that has more of a flavor profile that is adult friendly versus young child friendly. But then I think about some of other children that I know, or especially ones that are older and that are more adventurous eaters. And those are delicious options for a lunchbox. And it makes it feel a little bit more like a meal because schools are serving amazing lunches. And so I am not by any means anti-school lunch because we pack lunches. We actually do a little bit of both in our household. And that's been a big thing for Ellie this year, moving into kindergarten, to be able to get hot lunch. But there's also times when hot lunch isn't what what they're serving is not what she wants. So it is nice at times to give her more than just what feels like, individual ingredient, like just a chickpea or just a chip or whatever that might be. But to be able to give them things that are a bit more of a recipe and a bit more complicated and complex with flavors, just to continue to develop their flavor palette.
Right. So it's not just deconstructed, but as they get older, you're going to start putting it all together. So what's your Instagram handle? You have a ton of followers. I do have Instagram envy, but you do a lot of Lunchbox photos, right? So if people follow you on Instagram, they'll get to follow along and get more Lunchbox inspiration?
Absolutely. So my handle is at Holley Grainger. The spelling of my name's a little funny. So Holley with an E and Grainger with an AI is what I always say. So it's just simple. It's at Holley Grainger. But I use the hashtag Healthy Little Lunchboxes. And there are 700 to 800 different lunchboxes just using that hashtag that you'll be able to find. I'd say almost all of them are from me. But when I share a lunchbox, which I try to share at least 1 or 2 a week, you can see what we had. And sometimes I'll go back and say, this one was a hit, or I'll say this one was a bust. So I try to be really open. Or if there's days where I say, there was nothing in the house, I don't know how I scraped this together. And other days it's like, all right, I'm patting myself on the back. And my children just cheered because I used a cookie cutter and turned the sandwich into a flower, so everyone's happy in our household. But there is quite a variety, and they go way back. They go way back 5 or 6 years. And so, of course, the photography looks a little bit different in each one. But for me, it's really just about helping my readers find inspiration and just come up with new ideas. Because I search other Lunchbox hashtags all the time just for inspiration. There's so many different ideas out there that, why recreate the wheel when you can see, oh, here's a really great recipe or a good idea, and here's a twist that will make it, unique and special for my family. So really using Instagram and Pinterest and relying on those resources and, following certain hashtags helps me quite a bit, and hopefully can help your listeners by checking out my Instagram and Healthy Little Lunchbox.
So one more question about these bento boxes.
Yeah.
When a child opens the bento and there's all these different compartments, is the food packed in little containers within those compartments, or do you open the bento and voila, the food is there, and how does it not fall all over the place?
Certainly. Well, there's different styles. So there is one style that it's the box. You open it up and there are individual containers with a top inside of that. So for little ones and little hands, that can be difficult because that means their teacher most likely is having to help them open up, lids that seal. So it does take a little bit of extra strength to get it open. For an older child, it's no problem. And these have larger portions and servings than some others. So that is one type of box that's out there. There are others like the Bento that we talked about earlier that I use quite a bit, that each, I guess it's kind of rubberized and it's hard to explain a little bit, but if you saw a picture, you could tell where each little compartment, the top closes, but each little compartment has its own seal, just sort of based on the outline on the top. It seals it shut. So you can shake it up and open the box, and nothing in one compartment has dripped over into the other compartment. However, let's say it's ranch dressing or yogurt or whatever, cottage cheese, and you've shaken that box up and you open it up, well, it's going to be on the top as well. So that's where I learned quickly that even though it's ideal that it does not transfer from one side to the other, you do kind of have to be careful because it will, when you open it, everything's sort of like bloop, it comes out. So a lot of times I'll use a piece of plastic wrap or Glad press and seal or one of those and just lay that on the top of the little tray and sort of just press it down. So because it's going to get thrown around in their backpack, when they open their box, then all they have to do is just peel off that piece of plastic wrap or press and seal, and then it helps keep it nice and clean. And there are others like the Planet Box that it doesn't necessarily, like if I were to put yogurt in one compartment and shake it up, yogurt might land over in another compartment, but they have little containers within the container that, it's a little round circle that fits inside of one of the squares with the top. So there's so much innovation. And I really think it's kind of depends on the age of your child and the style that they like. Like you were saying, your boys, they might be more willing to eat out of something that's stainless steel, maybe not, than something that's hot pink. So it kind of depends, and it depends on what you'll be serving. But there's so much out there now. If you go to Amazon and you search Lunchbox, it's amazing what pops up. Yeah. And I have on my website a shop page. And so it's just holleygrainger.com/shop. But I've shared a lot of my favorite lunchboxes there. Those are all Amazon affiliate links. So if you click on it, it goes over to Amazon and you're buying directly from Amazon. So I'm just sharing my favorites there. You're not buying them from me, but it is a good way to see ones that we've used and we've curated, and I'm able to share I like this one for this. And I've done quite a few Facebook Lives as well, sharing some of those, the difference between the different lunchboxes so that people can decide which one they like, because they are an investment. Some are as inexpensive as $5 or $10. Others are as expensive as $80. And so,
wow.
Okay. Yeah. So you really have to kind of think, how long is this going to last? What's my reason for wanting a certain style? And what's my child going to use? It's things you don't think about, It's
right.
like, who thinks about that? But it's lots of little considerations. And for me, it's whatever makes life easy and they'll use. So that's where we end up landing a lot of the time.
This is good to know. And I'm actually sort of laughing to myself because I'm thinking of Josh. He's 22 and he just does not like to cook because he's like Mr. Wall Street, I'll hire people to cook for me. I'll eat out. So he's very cocky about it. But if you were to pack up a bento lunch for him every day and it was like a hot pink lunchbox, he'd eat that lunch. He's at the point in his life where he's like a working guy. He's, probably spending everything he makes on, lives in New York City.
Yeah.
So if you gave him a hot pink lunchbox, he'd be like, bring it on. If it's free food, I will take it. So
exactly. No need to discriminate with the lunchbox. If it's good food and it's, hot or cold or flavorful, and you can get really creative with what you put in there. You can deconstruct sushi and, make a cucumber salad with rice vinegar and a little bit of, olive oil or sesame oil or something, and a little bit of some sesame seeds, and you can get kind of fancy with them. I mean, it doesn't always have to just be roast chicken. So there's lots of opportunity and lots of options out there. And that's always what amazes me when I go on Instagram and just start searching. Or it's like the works of art. And I think, I'm not sending that with my child. I'm going to leave it on my counter and make sure everyone sees it, because this is like the most beautiful, creative thing ever. So there's some cool stuff out there to check out what people are doing. But at the end of the day, it's whatever is quick and easy and healthy and they'll eat that. If I hit all those things, then it's a win for me.
And there are people, I know in Japan, it's big in their culture to do a big deal over lunch, and they do make beautiful lunches for their kids. It's like almost a full-time job. I mean, it would be hard to have a job because it's a ton of work, but they are exquisite. So yeah, I think that's a great idea, just to Google and look around and have some fun.
It's pretty entertaining.
So Holley, I always love to ask my guests before we kind of start to wrap things up, do you have a favorite cookbook? This is a book that you find yourself turning to again and again. It doesn't have to be about lunches, but just a book that inspires you and that you love to cook from.
Well, I will say, having been on myrecipes.com, working there for a million years, working for cookinglight.com, I do use social media quite a bit when it comes to looking for recipe inspiration. But I recently, my friend and fellow dietitian, Mimi Inge, gifted me with her cookbook, Generations of Love and Food. And I think what's cool about that is Mimi's a friend. And so I've followed along with her the entire, all of her recipe testing and going back and forth. And she's from Alabama, and her grandmother is just a Southern grandmother, true and true. And so I've had more fun following along on social media and, through some emails and whatnot, Mimi's adventure and talking to her and hearing stories about her grandmother, Nan. And so when she gave me the book, I love the fact that it has so many stories in it, but that it also has a lot of recipes that I know because I grew up eating those in the South as well. Even though my grandmother was Italian, we certainly had recipes that were inspired by, the Southern cuisine. And then it's fun how Mimi has taken her grandmother's recipes and given those a twist. So I've had a lot of fun lately with that cookbook just for inspiration. If I'm looking for baby shower, brunch ideas, going back, okay, what did Nan serve? Okay, how has Mimi kind of twisted this a little bit? So that's the one that I've really been loving and looking at quite a bit lately. And then, of course, I always go back to the cookbooks that I worked on, millions of years ago. I look at some of them and I'm like, oh, that recipe. But I have one book that I did forever ago. It was my first cookbook. It was the Weight Watchers Shortcut Cookbook. But I'll tell you what, it's certainly not in publication now, but there are so many super simple recipes in there. And a lot of them start with convenience products. I'm all about cheating and doing what you have to do to make life easy when you're trying to feed people fast. But I go back to that one quite a bit. My mom always laughs and she loves it as well. I think we're the only two people that probably still have this book and still use it and reference it. But those are certainly two that I always kind of find myself going to, either for entertainment or inspiration or just quick ideas.
Very good. Well, thank you, Holley. And I hope you've inspired everybody today to get a little more creative at lunchtime. I know that I should give myself more than 5 minutes to eat lunch every day. I think today was maybe 4 minutes because you haven't eaten lunch yet because I, of course, booked you during the lunch hour. So I apologize for that. But,
no worries.
But thank you. Anything else you want to share with us? Anything we forgot to mention? We could go on and on, obviously, but anything you want to share before we let you off the hook here?
Oh, well, I so enjoyed speaking to you, Liz. Of course, it's always fun. And I just really hope if your listeners have questions or need inspiration that they will check out my download, the 125 Healthy Lunchboxes for Kids. Like I said, it's 30 weeks of healthy lunchbox ideas. And then I would love to connect on social media and, help to inspire, answer questions, whatever that is, because there's so many different ideas and tips and whatnot. So if there's anything that I can ever answer or do for your readers, and listeners, I am certainly always there. And I loved speaking with you.
Great. And you're holleygrainger.com, and you're also Holley Grainger on Twitter and Instagram?
Yes.
Okay. Well, in the show notes, everybody, I will give you links to all of Holley's resources. And Holley, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks so much, Liz. Have a good one. Good luck to everyone with all that lunchbox packing.
Thanks, Holley. And to all of my listeners, thanks for tuning in today. You can stop by liz'shealthytable.com/podcast and just check out the show notes from today's episode. As always, follow me on social media. I'm at Liz Weiss on Instagram and on Twitter, and Liz's Healthy Table over at Facebook. And, if you like the show, post a review on iTunes, and you can certainly subscribe to me there, Google Play, Stitcher, I'm everywhere. Until next time, thanks for listening to Liz's Healthy Table.